Fellas, it finally happened. 5 deep sight BXR-55 battlers were obtained, thus granting us the weapon pattern for this beautiful lightweight pulse rifle, and then finally the ability to craft this sexy monster. For those that don't know, this is essentially the battle rifle, but in Destiny form. It has its very own unique archetype called the Legacy PR-55 frame. Essentially states that it's customized frame with dramatically increased accuracy, stability, and targeting while firing from the hip. Now, it's still a 450 round per minute pulse rifle, but here recently 450s actually got a buff inside of Crucible. On top of that, all of these Dare of Eternity weapons have had an origin trait added to them called Hot Swap, where switching to this weapon while you are damaged strongly increases its handling for a short duration. This is extremely beneficial, especially considering Hot Swap only requires you to be slightly damaged, like literally a tickle, for it to be procced. And if you're rocking 2 different weapons with both Hot Swap, you pretty much always have constant uptime. Now, there has been new traits also added to this pulse rifle, and in doing so, Bungie has also granted us enhanced versions of each of these traits, meaning finding that perfect God roll for PvE and PvP for the BXR-55 has never been easier. Now, granted, it's going to take you like, I don't know, 50 plus Dares of Eternity runs to actually get all the frames for this weapon. It's a grind, fellas, no lie. By the way, we've made a guide on it. Feel free to check that out. However, if your sanity can take it, obtaining this thing is definitely worth the grind, which takes us to the God rolls that you can get on the BXR-55. Personally, this was the roll that I went for, and that's essentially Arrowhead Break for that increase in recoil direction by plus 30. This actually maxes out our recoil direction all the way up to 100. Ricochet rounds for that bump there in range, as well as stability. The stability bump is really nice. Perpetual Motion, which grants 5 stability, 5 handling, and 5 reload at just 1 stack. And after 10 seconds of continuous motion, you're granted 15 stability, 15 handling, and 15 reload at 2 stacks. Guys, we're talking very high stability here on the top end. Like my particular roll, this is upwards to like 86 stability, which makes the weapon feel phenomenal. And the enhanced version of Perpetual Motion allows for these bonuses to last longer, specifically 1 whole second longer, which most of us are in motion constantly. So you'll be surprised how much uptime you would get with Perpetual Motion, especially Perpetual Motion Enhanced. Now, Kill Clip. This is an obvious one, guys. It elevates our damage by 33% after getting a kill and reloading. The buff duration for the enhanced version is 5.5 seconds. For the base, it's only 5 seconds. Granted, it's still an extra half a second. Guys, I'm being kind of a perfectionist here, but this is what I wanted. Now, I'm going to dive into damage values, not only for Kill Clip, but also for a number of other traits that you can get on this weapon, including things like Blunt Execution Rounds, which, yes, can be enhanced. Incandescent. Fellas, this is a solar weapon, and yes, it will synergize greatly with Solar 3.0 and enhance Incandescent on top of that, and you have some mad application of Scorch happening on the battlefield. We're also going to talk about the new trait Gut Shot Straight, where aiming down sights increases body shot damage, but of course decreases target acquisition. We did get to play with the base version of this. We're going to talk about that more specifically, though. I will say the traits that have been removed include things like Rangefinder, which I know sucks. Adrenaline Junkie has also been removed, and things like Snapshot, Auto-Loading Holster, those 2 are also removed from the BXR. So if you happen to have those rolls, and most notably a Rangefinder roll currently in its base form, I would actually suggest keeping it. Now, with that being said, this is still a lightweight frame pulse rifle. I know it's its own legacy archetype, but lightweight sit at a 0.87 time to kill value, allowing you to kill guardians in 7 crits, 1 body. Now, I know the damage values show 27 damage per crit. It's actually 26.4. However, this is a substantial improvement over what it was doing. It was actually hitting 24.75 before the update in June. This didn't change the time to kill value, though, just added more forgiveness. Now, when we look at things like Kill Clip, this elevates our damage to 36 per crit. For the sake of rounding, though, we'll just say 35 damage per crit, but obviously this allows the weapon to easily 2 bursts, even max resilience guardians, almost to the point where you could 2 bursts a guardian in 5 crits and 1 body. Even on high resilience guardians, you can accomplish that. So not only are you getting an increase there in damage to get the 2 bursts off on all crits, but you're able to do it with even more forgiveness at 5 crits and 1 body. Time to kill wise, we're talking roughly 0.4 to 0.5 seconds for that 2 bursts, which is absolutely cooking. But what about the other traits? More specifically, what about Blunt Execution Rounds? That again leans more into the identity or the Halo identity of the BR. Now, Blunt Execution Rounds states that damaging nearby combatants with melee abilities dramatically increase handling and damage. Now, the enhanced version states that it expires after an improved short duration or the next shot. Now, that melee damage has to be done on an enemy within 15 meters. So you can't just like throw a knife across the map. But inside of PvE, that damage is actually 500%, which is pretty crazy. Inside of PvP, though, it is 100%. It lasts for for 1 burst, and it also grants you 100 handling for 10 seconds or until you fire. Granted, there is a 4-second cooldown for you to proc blunt execution rounds, but it can be activated while stowed. Now, any powered melee, which requires sprinting, sliding, or performing a slam, will not activate blunt execution rounds. Granted, things do be bugging. The main difference here for the enhanced version is that it lasts longer. Damage-wise, it is impressive. I mean, you can seriously just 2-burst somebody with ease. We're talking crit damage being elevated to 54 damage per crit. Body shot is actually elevated to 32 per body. And when we're talking about burst damage, for crit, that's 162 damage in a single burst. That's almost an entire Guardian. 96 per body. And we start tacking on damage values like Radiance. This is a 10% buff across the board. That's 59 damage per crit, 177 per burst, 36 damage per body, which is a whopping 108 per burst. I only bring this up because both of those damage values can easily allow you to either follow up with a single burst to the body or the head, and you'll get the kill. As long as like one burst is all heads and the other all body, you'll still be able to achieve that 2 bursts. Now, what about gut shot straight? This is a new one. Is this worth using over the likes of kill clip or even blunt execution rounds? Crit shot damage still remains at that 26.4, as gut shot only affects body shot damage. However, the body shot damage is elevated to 18 per body, which is 54 damage per burst. Now, I bring this up because 7 crits 1 body is what's needed to reach that optimal time to kill value of 0.87 seconds. When we throw in that increase in body shot damage though, this does allow us to kill Guardians in 6 crits, 2 body, around 6 to 7 resilience, which is pretty good. You'd be surprised how many people walk through Crucible at low resilience values, and that's like mid-tier. So that would actually hit a lot of Guardians. Is it worth using though over one of these damage perks, considering one of the biggest drawbacks is that gut shot straight hurts your target acquisition? Now, we don't really know how much it decreases the target acquisition. The base perk states that it just decreases target acquisition, but it doesn't give any insight to how much. I will say if you are going to use gut shot straight, you need to use the enhanced version. You'll still get that increase in body shot damage from 16 to 18, but it only decreases target acquisition slightly. How much is slightly? No idea. What I can tell you though is based on my experience with my gut shot roll, and this was just on a base BXR, no enhanced gut shot, it was noticeable. The lack of target acquisition was noticeable. So I do not suggest the base version of this trait. If you're going to rock it, rock the enhanced version and you will have added forgiveness. 6 crits, 2 body. It's nice. Granted though, is it worth using over other traits like Elemental Capacitor or even Eye of the Storm or Incandescent at that fact? Yes, Incandescent is still fantastic inside of PvP. Blunt execution rounds and kill clip both offer the opportunity to get the 2 bursts, which is very nice. Gut shot straight is supposed to be that sweet spot that allows you to essentially have more forgiveness in a single gunfight without having to proc it from a melee or from a kill. But personally, would I use gut shot over Elemental Capacitor or Eye of the Storm, especially Eye of the Storm, right? And a dual Eye of the Storm aims your weapon for you. And when we start to actually break down enhance Eye of the Storm, not only does the weapon become more accurate and boost handling as your health gets lower, it also boosts your base stability. We already talked about how high the stability is on this weapon. Holy hell, we're getting more. So even though gut shot straight does allow you to get more forgiveness at 6 crits to body, Elemental Capacitor or Eye of the Storm both aid you so much in consistency that I think landing that 7 crit 1 body won't be difficult. Personally, guys, kill clip is the go-to trait combination with perpetual motion. There's just so much synergy there, and I love it inside of just 6v6. By the way, skill-based matchmaking is in full effect, so it's very impressive that BXR was able to put in as much work as it was. However, inside of like regular duels, I think Eye of the Storm may be the option I'm going to go for. Having that kick in, especially in its hipfire, that trait proccing in its hipfire would be beautiful. And honestly, this is when I go back to what I said a long time ago about having traits permanently unlocked, or at least purchasing 2 of them. Because this is one of those situations where I can go, okay, I want this BXR for 6v6, this BXR for 1v1s, and then this BXR for PvE. Because we haven't even talked about PvE. But trait combinations though, guys, perpetual motion Eye of the Storm for 1v1s, kill clip perpetual motion for 6v6, or pretty much anywhere you want. Heating up and kill clip is also another good option. And again, the enhanced version of heating up lasts longer. And one of the complaints I have with heating up and kill clip together is that one perk procs before the other, and the duration just doesn't seem long enough. But with heating up lasting longer, you'll have more overlap there. The other trait combination is actually Pugilist, where final blows of the weapon generate melee energy, and dealing melee damage briefly improves this weapon's handling. That combination with blunt execution rounds was meant for each other, and you can utilize this even inside of PvE. As long as you're within 15 meters, that melee will proc blunt execution rounds, and Arc 3.0 really does synergize nicely with a lot of our Arc melees. Now, this also brings us to Incandescent. Base Incandescent states that defeating a target spreads Scorch to those nearby, and more powerful combatants and opposing guardians cause Scorch in a larger radius. Now, the enhanced version of Incandescent states that defeating a target spreads a longer lasting Scorch to those nearby. So even more icky, or I guess in this case, burny, that can be spread. And again, we have so many fragments that lean into this, whether it's applying more scorch stacks, solar abilities as well, that can lean into this. You can cause those ignitions inside of PvP. Maybe you want to pair this with the Caliban build. By the way, check out our build video that time we did. It was disgusting. This synergy can work inside of PvP, especially in PvE, but even inside of PvP, it can work. Scorch ignitions inside of PvP is a nasty thing to behold. So guys, overall, there's a lot of routes you can go with the new version of the BXR. And for those that are wondering, Cross, what about each one of the Mementos? Which one is the sexiest? Well, you got your Gold Trials one, you got your Nightfall Vanguard one, and then you got your Gambit one. Personally, I like the Gambit one the most, but to each their own. It just looks the sexiest to me. Inside of PvE though, the God Roll I would go for is that Demolitionist roll with Incandescent, because there's just so many things you can synergize with, like a Solar 3.0 build with solar grenades, and the enhanced version of Demolitionist will grant you even more grenade energy. So that combination with the Scorch and Incandescent there, and the enhanced version of that, it's disgusting. Now, considering that this weapon with these new rolls and these enhanced traits can't roll something like Rangefinder, what are we looking at in terms of range? Well, I actually have a range masterwork on mine, and again, my barrel perk is Arrowhead Break because I just wanted to max things out. You don't have to rock Arrowhead Break. You can, of course, rock a counterbalance mod. This would put you at roughly 85, which is vertical. I just maxed it out on Arrowhead Break because it's just nice to see that 100 recoil direction. At that point though, even without Rangefinder, my roll specifically can reach up to 43.41 meters. Now, if I was to turn around and throw an accurized round instead of ricochet rounds, that tags on a little more range, giving us 44.12 meters. I think ricochet rounds are still the go-to option because that stability is really nice. And again, stability combats flinch, incoming gunfire, it will combat. Now, the old rolls like Rangefinder does elevate the range here, like just swapping out Rangefinder on my roll. If I could have Rangefinder on the craftable version, that does kick it up to 47.75 meters, which is a hell of a lot of reach, which is why I do suggest if you do have a Rangefinder roll, you may want to hang on to it. Base BXR is still a very good weapon, especially if you have a good set of rolls together. But I do think that between hot swap, enhanced perks, and the roll that I'm rocking here in front of you guys, you're going to experience a BXR that absolutely shreds and is S tier on so many levels. This pulse rifle is 100% worth the grind. It was worth the grind even before the lightweight pulse rifle buff. Now it's definitely worth the grind. So guys, good luck. Again, we have a Dares of Eternity red box guide on how to get these weapons. It's pretty straightforward. TLDR, play the game with some slight optimizations here and there. Let me know in the comments below if you've tried this one. We will be reviewing pretty much every weapon this season because there's so many good ones on top of the Dare of Eternity weapons. As you know though, with all these crafted weapons, they take a lot of time, a lot of grind. So thank you all for your patience. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.